So I found an interesting failure on my cluster today. Common problem on the L300s is that the fuel gauge stops working. The fuel gauge is connected to these 4 screw points here. Most of them go to this connector. And so I have my multimeter here for continuity. So hey, if we have a good connection, it'll beep, right? And then, so if we take this copper pad from the connector and go to one of our screws, we get a good connection. But then if I go from that same screw to the actual pin, I get nothing. So somehow there is no conductivity between the actual connector pin and the trace on the circuit board, which is quite an interesting failure. See, no conductivity, but conductivity from this side of the trace to this side of the trace. So really strange that somehow solder joint or whatever is in here has failed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my soldering iron and I'm just going to wet this surface with solder and repair that connection, and hopefully that'll make the fuel gauge work. This is also a ground connection, so it's connected to the oil pressure light as well, and these other 2 lights. I think this is like battery and something else. So if these 3 lights and your fuel gauge aren't working, then this pin over here would definitely be one of the culprits to look at. All right, so I got a little bit of solder on there. I'm gonna clean off the flux. With some isopropanol. You can see I got a nice little bead of solder around the base of that pin. Now let's check it again for conductivity. Good, so conductivity has been restored. So I've found some more of these failures. So I've basically gone through and soldered all of them. You can see by example on this one, I touch it and there's no conductivity. But when I press on it and push that pin into the board, then I get it to beep. So touching, no contact, but then when I apply force, I get a connection. So I'm gonna have to go through and solder all of these pins. And ta-da! It looks like the problem is fixed. Crazy. Literally a clusterfuck.